All right, so there is a big squeeze coming up. This is what we have been seeing. So LLM subsidies are drying up because those astronomical data center bills that we keep hearing about need to get paid, right? And as models get more capable, the API rates are going up and not down. So what do you do if your LLM provider is no longer there? So today, open source LLM, sustainable AI business models, self-hosting, and should you be buying a Mac Mini? So you're listening to Agentic AI in DevOps. I'm Fernando, joined by Andrey and Vladimir from Sirob Technologies, where we built Boris, our Agentic DevOps teammate. So as usual, let's start with the news.
And one of the news today, it's more related maybe to security a bit. But you probably already heard about the Vercel case, but what is behind that? It's a company that called the Context AI, which is building quite cool product, capture the context, deploy agents, and so on. But the problem is that AI-based development is going way fast. And it was some issue in their legacy product, which lead to some incident somewhere else. But the problem which I see here, that all the parties have an assumption that the other party is doing the great job here in terms of security. Like as the engineer from Vercel who log in to a Context AI with his Google entity, think, Context AI probably the good company, they're doing the great job.
And with Google, how
exactly awful. What could be wrong, right? The security engineers.
Like,
yeah,
everyone as it gets.
Everyone's doing it. And on a Vercel security side, and some Google Workspace administrator think, it's a Google workspace. It should be secure by default, right? So nothing should be wrong. So another assumption from Vercel side, from the Context AI, they don't even think that some company like the size of Vercel can just connect their tool somewhere, because officially, again, Vercel wasn't a customer of Context AI, so they was not aware of the customer that's big size are actually connected to their infrastructure, especially to their legacy product, which is not in active use anymore. So all the parties have a lot of assumptions, and it's ended with a kind of a big disaster, which you will see around the web. But what I can warn you, what can happen in the future, it will happen with more companies as well, because AI development just will be faster and faster. So we will go in an interesting world that all the tools looks beautiful and nice, but maybe not everywhere perfect. So beware of this.
Yeah. Lower your expectations. Check all the stuff as you usually do. We hope. Like when we spoke about skills, like the same thing. Do your due diligence. I think there was another story. Like there was quite a bit of running around the internet with a Lovable being breached, but they have not been breached. It was just they used to have a feature where like if you make a public project and like all your chats becoming public, they disabled that last year, like almost a year ago, for enterprise accounts. But it looks like that documentation didn't really convey the fact that your chats will be public and explorable by everyone. So it caught people by surprise. On a Lovable PR side, I don't think it's a good idea to blame users, because that's basically what they did. They told them like, well, they said like, our documentation sucks, but like there was like you making it public. So like, what do you want from us? Like you make it public, you made it public.
Yeah, you click a button public, right? So public, what does it mean public? Everyone can see everything. So public work.
Like with Vercel, we're talking about Vercel breach, where the environment variables, I think that was like the most important part of it. Through there was like a chain of exploitation.
I think I dig a bit inside that. Environment variables, I hope, at least based on my expectations, they're not affected because they was encrypted on the Vercel side. No?
Not exactly. So once they started with environment variables, you just had environment variables. Then Versal introduced
the secret. Yeah,
sensitive
someone may
environment
use.
variables, like
Yeah, someone may
secrets.
use.
Those get
Yeah,
encrypted,
you're right.
but I don't think they have them
Exactly.
from the day one. So if you were like a legacy kind of customer who've been using Versal
And
for a long time, you might have plain text environment variables that might
it's not
contain
only
secrets.
legacy. People may just put the secrets in the environment variable just by this. They can just do it, and that's it. Just not put it in a secret. Just put it in environment variable.
So they might not be aware of the secret. So like the secrets have not stuff that was like marked as a sensitive was encrypted. That is not affected because the attacker didn't get hold of the encryption keys. But stuff that people placed in the plain text environment variables that could have sensitive data in there, like API keys and stuff.
Yeah, and that can be quite a thing, right? With all of the non-technical people now deploying to Vercel and creating these apps and doing like without knowing what they are doing exactly. Indeed, I mean, the chances of finding those misconfigured environments are super high right now.
Yes, everyone is a builder now.
Yeah.
Yes, everyone
this is the thing, right? And I was seeing like watching
Cool.
some videos of people doing stuff, and it's like, yes, approve. Yeah, you can read, you can load this, and like they don't even stop to think for a second, right? Like, what are you loading in your environment? So
I believe actually every professional now feel the same because everyone is a lawyer, everyone is a doctor, everyone is a developer. So it's the thing now.
Interesting case.
Another news that worth bringing up, which is not exactly the news. Like, I mean, it's not hot off the press, but it's end of March, so and we are still in April, so it's kind of new. Which is, I'm pretty sure we covered, like we mentioned, Opus 4.7 last week, and with the title "Who Cares." But then there was another release from Google a couple of weeks ago, which is like Gemma 4, their open source model, and you might be thinking, so what? Like it's Gemma 4, like another open source model, and you should understand that the majority of open source model, if you take like Anthropic models as a benchmark, they most of them are around the Haiku level of intelligence, give or take, especially because of their sizes. I mean, like they built to run locally. There are a couple of them that are closing to Sonnet. Kimi 2.6 actually came out this week, I think, or last week it was, which claims to be Opus level. But you need to have a very beefy machine, or maybe like even a cluster to run this kind of models. Gemma 4 is something that you can run locally, and that actually kind of ties that up to our main topic of the big squeeze that we will explain in a second. So the big deal with Gemma 4 is the fact that it's actually using the new technology under the hood, which called a TurboQuant. I mean, Turbo should be good. I'm gonna read you a little bit from the research paper introduction, just to explain what that is. So vectors are a fundamental way of AI models understand and process information. We know that, right? So it's stored, like the information is stored as vectors. Small vectors describe simple attributes, blah, 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 blah. And that brings us to the vector quantization, which is a powerful classical data compression technique that reduces the size of high-dimensional vectors. This optimization addresses two critical facets of AI. It enables in-chances vector search, the high-speed technology powering large-scale AI and search engines by enabling faster similarity lookups, and it helps unclog key-value cache bottlenecks by reducing the size of key-value pairs, which enables faster similarity searches and lowers memory cost. So it comes obviously with a little bit of drawbacks, which are not really
it's kind of a trade-off.
Yeah, you always have a trade-off, right? So there is like no
more simple wordings. You give up maybe 2-3% of accuracy to much more efficient
compression.
Efficiency. Yeah, compression.
People call it like almost lossless compression. It's almost lossless.
Yeah,
you watched the show on HBO, like the Silicon Valley?
Silicon Valley, yeah.
Oh boy.
Max Piper
Oh
was
boy.
doing so, and like Google coming up with a turbo quant, it's kind of funny and
Very
ironic.
Yes, that's
Uh,
a lot of things.
But well, the meat of it is that the Gemma 4 being quite capable model, and like why do we care? Because it actually can run on a much smaller machine now, like your laptop, for instance, like even your older laptop, because it requires way less RAM to run.
To people to a bit to compare, there is a portal which called Arena AI or LLM Arena in the past, and if you can see the scoring of Gemma 4 31 billion, it's kind of beat GPT 5.3, or it's kind of beat the Gemini 2.5 Pro, like its previous one, or Opus 4. So it's basically you get a kind of open Opus 4 locally. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And again, it's possible to run this kind of intelligence on a local machine, which wasn't possible without this compression. And this is like a first model to use it, like research paper is public. And like now I'm pretty sure all the labs are racing to implement that. So we should see, like, I mean, like from those Chinese offers, like the same, I mentioned like Kimi 2.6. If they apply turbo quants to Kimi 2.6, maybe we will be able to run Kimi 2.6 local. Who knows? Maybe it will fit. But when applied to DevOps, those small models are really important because they're fast, right? And in DevOps applications, you're actually not doing much thinking, but you're doing tons of tools calling. And tools calling takes turns. The bigger the model, like remember our last episode about engine loops, right? So you have turns. Every tool call is like technically a turn. Like you call two tools and you take the next turn to take the next call. Possible to optimize and maybe do like couple of in parallel. Anywho, what my point being is that you're getting a smart, fast model that you can run locally that can do tool calling very quickly, and then ideally you would do a hybrid scenario where you use local model to gather all the context, do all the tool calling, and then you bring in the hosted model by the LLM provider to do the thinking. That actually enables quite a bit of like sustainable AI, if you like. So like it will lower your bill, and like lowering your bill is actually important.
But you know, like I say, if you think all other vendors gonna apply the same technique, we're gonna see the price drop. What we're supposed to see? It's supposed to become cheaper and less smart. You know, it's become less predictable, less smart and cheaper.
Well, there is a term like big squeeze that I kind of using to describe 2026. For us, it started with our.
But it's squeezing from the both sides. You know, like it's in one side it's like a shorter of supply and availability, and another side the new technologies, and we are coming to some more like a common.
There is another dimension that like people don't talk about. Well, they do talk about it, but they don't understand how it applies to them. You hear about all the CapEx like the hyperscalers doing, right? I mean, Oracle is going cash negative and borrowing money to build data centers. Do you know who is going to pay for that?
Raise your hands.
You, like, if you're watching it live, if you're listening, now you can imagine my finger pointing at you because someone got to pay for all of that. Otherwise, it's just a bubble that no one needs. I mean, like everyone, like now investing into the data centers. you hear about people saying AI changing the world from every corner, which is still a big question, but we can talk about that later. So there is a CapEx which needs to be covered by someone, and that's why you see the subsidies drying up, right? Like 2 years ago, the typical AI subscription, $20, use as much as you want. Nowadays, you have to go around search for those. You will have the limits of different kinds. I mean, your cloud code or cloud, like Anthropic subscription for $20 pretty much turned into pumpkins this year. I mean, like you cannot do anything on $20. You run out of allowed usage in like 15 minutes of doing anything clever.
A bit of interesting moment, like, is how terms are changing. For example, if you go with annual plans and you expecting, you have plans, right? You buy the product and after it's kind of squeeze you in the middle of a year and you, things are changed. So,
like, dude, I have to now think. I have to think when I'm gonna use my cloud subscription.
Or you know what I saw? Like, it's a kind of hybrid use now. People have one subscription for thinking how I can use the big one. So they open the ChatGPT, ask how I'm supposed to use Claude, when copy paste it in the Claude and use it, or the opposite. It depends.
And you're seeing like proliferation of tools, right? As well. That to help with that, right? We talked about
it's like subscription switcheroos that's going on right now.
Yeah,
but like for instance, this podcast being processed by Cloud Code, I have automation to process it. So if I know we're gonna do recording now, I'm not doing anything with Claude before. So I actually have like a window of use, and I can process it when I need to. So I have to do this mental gymnastics now. Or like, for instance, I'm getting like Kira credits. So I would use Kira credits to build a plan. Then I feed that to Cursor on After, because like After is free. And then I maybe use like Cloud Code subscription if I still have a window to go review what came out.
It's a clever technique somewhere, because Windows are coming in 5 hours now. It's a common sense, like it's an alpha subscription. So one guy ran the automation in the 6 a.m. morning to get the 5 hours from 6 to 11, make a lunch break, and another 5 hours. So it's
start aligning with your working hours, right? Like,
exactly.
There's all this gymnastics around this and tools and
30 minutes a day, because it runs out in 15 minutes.
Now, the $20 one, it's you can do almost nothing, right? Like it's very limited for any meaningful work.
And that's why this episode, and you know what? A lot of people go to internet and they kind of seeing people running around buying Mac Minis. Let's address that. I was like one of those. I came like when our Cursor license ran out, I told to Vlad and said like, Vlad, shall we buy a Mac Mini?
And you know how we discussed it? I actually start monitoring the supply of the Mac Mini before, try to understand how fast we can get them if this question appears. And the supply is kind of short, but only on the most efficient models of Mac Mini, where you get the cheapest version with the biggest amount of memory. There's a ratio between them.
Actually, yesterday I heard the news, at least it was in US, but you cannot order now higher tier Mac Studios and Mac Minis, like with a RAM up over 64 gigabytes. You cannot get it. It's just like out of stock.
But it's interesting.
It's amazing. Like for me, I think we were discussing before the recording, right? Like how interesting that this all. Of course, later people start thinking more, but it at least first time I saw this was in the OpenClaw project, right? When there was a screenshot of the guy who created OpenClaw saying like, "Hey, my Mac Mini is back in the hotel, right?" And you were running there, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, you need to have a Mac Mini to be able to run this project." And then I saw so many videos on YouTube like, "This is why you should buy a Mac Mini," and it just exploded, right? Like people started buying without even
I mean, like the Mac Mini comes with a beefy processor and quite a bit of RAM, so you can run somewhat good models. Like, I mean, before Gemma 4, I mean, that was actually like one of the best options you had. But after Gemma 4, you have much more options.
It's a kind of important. It's a bit technical, but I have to share. It's the bunfish of a memory, which M4 or M4 Pro and M4 Max offer you. This is the ability to generate more tokens on the machine. It's not just the memory and just the CPU, it's bunfish inside the chip itself. So this is quite cool. And it's why maybe it's not available. So I just check it in the real life. It's not available.
Maybe let's touch that one. So when you run something locally, like when you're using something from the LLM provider, you don't really notice, like the token per second thing is not a concern for you because it's super duper quick. You cannot even have ability to read the thinking of the model that it's exposed to because it goes poo, answer. It's impossible to read, so no one does. If you try to run something locally with a llama, for instance, imagine you have your Intel MacBook, like I do. I tried running like Quen model there. I think I was getting like maybe 5 tokens a second.
Yes, right. 5, 7.
You can actually read it. Like it takes like 5-10 minutes for it to answer yo. Like that was like my prompt, yo. And it started to consider how to answer it. And like me and my wife were reading it. To entertain my wife, that was perfect. But for anything else, you probably don't want to use it.
You know the funny moment of it, and this is just the beginning because there is no context inside, and it's gonna be even more slower.
Yeah. Yes.
As you load more information for it to be useful, right? But I wonder, like, actually, of course, maybe as the technical people, we were thinking like, how can I run a model locally and leverage what we are discussing? But I think also a lot of people just have this idea. I want to have a 24/7 AI available that actually talks to OpenAI, Anthropic API, right? So you actually have that machine doing zero processing. You just need something. I mean, zero is not the thinking is still in the providers, right? And then you buy that machine like a super powerful and you use zero of it, right? And it's just for this idea. And Vlad was talking about this as well, right? Those Mac Minis are not necessarily built to run 24/7 for years. Right?
I can cover that. Like with a Mac Mini, with the Apple ecosystem, we get not just the hardware, we get a bit more. We get like as the macOS itself, the capabilities, the software which come with the macOS, and we pay for all of these things. So of course, if your OpenClaw agent is going to use Apple nodes, for example, fine, maybe you need a Mac Mini because there's no other way around. But if you want to run some small models for embedding or some small stuff, maybe you can consider it. But if you're going to consume only public providers and you're going to run only public models and public providers, probably there's other hardware which you can get for a much more affordable price and much less energy consumption, which is maybe still important. I don't know. Planet is still quite warm and everyone is buying more stuff to run it 24/7 at home. So.
Start from the solar panels instead.
Yeah. I think like in the end, for today, what we are discussing really is this like a trend that you start seeing, right? The idea to how can we move the inference to offline, let's say, to reduce the cost, because indeed the changes in the pricing. Yesterday I was reading something we mentioned as well before about Opus 4.7, where they are saying, the price is the same, but we mentioned this in the last session, but I think it matters here as well, that the tokenizer is different, right? So even though the price per token is the same, the model sends more tokens. So then in the end, you will still pay more. So there's going to be, I think, this kind of gymnastics behind the pricing as well, where for the public, it sounds like, it's more capable for the same price, where actually through the API, you're going to see that you're actually paying more.
I have a very clear definition when people need to run something locally if you have your own model. This is very, very clear definition.
Yeah.
If you are not going to consume the public model, if you need your own interface, for example, for development perspective, if you're developing your own model, you definitely need to have some kind of Mac Mini, to have a dev stand nearby you to just shorten the feedback loop and not consume the cloud or whatever else, just make it things faster. And but if you consume the public models, even open source models, so you just need that amount of work when we first start with that. What it's gonna do?
Yeah, so like our idea was to offload some of the coding agents we were running on the Mac Mini, but then like when we started to calculate like the token per second and kind of intelligence we are getting out of it, it quickly came to the point where like, well, it doesn't look like it's gonna pay off. Like if you look at the cost amortization over time, it didn't make sense really. Like even like if you're getting the beefiest Mac Studio, it was like, no, you like if this is like what you want to do, if you want to have it like as a coding agent, that's probably not going to fly. If you want to do like the personal assistant kind of thingy, maybe like there are other options. Like I mean, I think NVIDIA Jetson is there. Like there are other computers.
If you want to touch that, there's a whole generation of chips which is designed for AI workloads. People are not that much happy with the NVIDIA dominance on the market, and there is another direction what people are working on. It's more ARM based, but it's specifically designed for the AI, and it's going to be more of it. So.
Yeah. So for the like small stuff, like the personal assistant, sure, makes sense, because those people who were trying to do those personal assistants were first affected by the big squeeze this year, where like the first Anthropics and OpenAI basically said, you cannot do that. Like what they offer you with a subscription, for instance, you're getting $200 subscription, which gives you kind of unlimited use. Then they don't like you to actually use it unlimited. There is still like, it's the same like with the gym membership, right? You're buying the unlimited gym membership, but you're not living in the gym. So the same calculations come in there. And those were like running 24/7, burning tokens, creating the compute strain, which is limited for everyone right now. So there are, and like in ideal setup, as I mentioned, then like you remember our episode on harness, you might want to have a harness that gives you options on what models you run and allows you combining local models with publicly available via the API. There are ways to do that via OpenRouter, I believe, or like on a harness locally, because what I see people doing and what I've been doing for some applications where I would run a smaller model for the agentic stuff, like tool calling, to have it fast as a sub-agents, and then the orchestrator agent is the one who is thinking, gets outputs from the sub-agents that were like using a smaller model, does the thinking, runs more sub-agents to do the more agentic stuff, and carries on. And this way, like actually saving quite a bit on the tokens. And ideally, you would have that hybrid, especially like if you do something locally, like you would have it like local model, and if you have a decent MacBook, like the latest generation or previous generation, with enough RAM, like starting maybe from 48 gigs, like Gemma 4 will be flying there, and like the Qwen models will perform quite well. You will get a very decent token per second output. So that's something to aim for, I think. And another thing is to start considering what you're using your public models for, because if suddenly building a feature costs you 3,000 in token spend, should you do the feature? I mean, like it becomes the same mass as it was with the software developers. Now you just have elasticity that right?
I see. It's interesting comparison. But for like I say, a bit back to your tool calling experiment, I think there's some certain level of AI intelligence that allow to run this smart enough model for a tool call use, I find it around somewhere above open source of 20 billions of OpenAI, just a bit above, like as with Gemma, which we mentioned today. It should be good enough. But it's a certain level. If you just fall below it, it just not get your tools and so on.
Yeah.
So just level of it.
I mean, like, I think 8 billion models were quite popular, like for the smaller deployments. You can talk to those, but I guess they're only good for talking.
Just like a chat bot.
Yeah, they are good, like as to managing, for example, your documentation or the text, where the reasoning is not much important, I would like to say. But the task is more like a straightforward. But it's a bit hard to explain because we want to make it non-deterministic workflows. But I say that task is more straightforward. If task is more straightforward, just do a script for it. Just write a Python and use the code. And
Right? Yeah, I have been hearing, like seeing this discussion as well. I think that aligns with this, that the idea, like we have these huge frontier models that can do everything, like very generic, right? Everything in a sense, like they're trying to achieve this kind of goals. While you start having more of these vertical models, let's say a model that's very good at coding, one that's very good at, I don't know, documenting, and then you can start later kind of delegating things to the right model, and then maybe you have the big brain, the Opus or whatever you decide to use as the orchestrator, right? I think there's still more like early ages in that, but you start seeing some models that are very good at tool calling, because this is also an ability for a model, right, to be able to find the right tool to call. So it's interesting to see. I think this hybrid thing is going to become more and more of a thing as we see all the subsidies from these subscriptions disappearing. Anthropic blocking, for example, you cannot use third-party harnesses anymore, right? Like OpenClaw and these things. If you want, you need to use Claude Code or the desktop app. So it's going to be interesting thing to see, but it's good to keep an eye on, right? It's not that free anymore to use as it used to be maybe 2 months ago. And that's where you can start understanding how these things work and what kind of models are good for the thing that you're trying to do, more in particular.
This is what applies to the local development, but there is another angle, and like there is another reason why we're actually discussing that internally a lot, is building sustainable AI business model. So for instance, like we have Boris, our DevOps teammate, so we have to think about pricing. If you have LLM, like AI-enabled solutions that mixes the use of typical software with the LLM capabilities, then you have the token spent in there, which is variable thing that affects your pricing calculation. And if you are the venture-backed startup, so you have like investors' money that you can just burn it on the subsidies, trying to lure the users. That works, but then you basically do a shitification of things and you raise the prices and the big squeeze that's happening right now. The same kind of thing works to get this approach usually works to get the volume and learn what's working, what's not working. But it's not so good from sustainability, because if something that works on subsidies, there is no guarantee that it will be working as good on without them. So you can get to a certain scale, but then there are still hard decisions that you need to be making. And like for us, we're trying to build something that is sustainable, because when people make a decision to hire AI agent, like we talk a lot about hiring AI agent, we don't want to expose the tokenomics to people. Like we don't want people to think of this model. I mean, like it's gonna cost you 1,000 tokens. Like what is 1,000 tokens? I have no idea. I have features that I need to build. So we try to think about that differently and frame that differently to some known concepts that people used to dealing with, like price per hour, for instance. That's like what's very typical in DevOps workflow. It's also very typical to what contractors do. They do price per hour in most cases. So like my personal belief that this is something that's gonna be more and more where you actually pay per hour of the runtime. And then the tokenomics and optimization, that's like up to the company to figure it out. But I think it's important that like when you're choosing the vendor, you are aware of the fact that if the price is too low, it's subsidies and it's going to change. And like, do you want to get into this relationship or not? Like, because then you don't really know if that vendor have a sustainable business model and if they will be around next year. So that's something to figure out. And like, there are a lot of tools, for instance, in AI SRE category, like obviously with Boris, we're trying to go much beyond AI SRE. But well, that seems to be a category that's emerging, and we have to mention it. You go around the website, and there is no pricing. Like just like no pricing on the website. That tells you something about that business. And actually, a funny, just like life experience is that nowadays you can have a website, and the only page that people check is pricing, because basically it says everything you get an offer. Well, it's like terms of conditions. You go there to see the company name and then do your diligence from there.
And but first,
two pages. Like if your marketing tells you that you need more pages.
Yeah, I think now indeed everyone is getting used to this, right? You're like, oh, this tool looks cool. Okay, but how much does it cost? Because it's always like that. Like AI can
also
do
like
everything. We are gonna do all of
line
this,
by
right?
line. What you're getting, what it basically will have list of all the two features that they think are important for you to see.
Yeah.
So,
but it is a mental gymnastics, right? I was checking out some tool yesterday, and it is the usual thing, right? I don't know, like $100, you get 9,000 credits, and then you then you scroll down. There's a table. This action costs this many credits. This action credit is like, man, how much can I do like with this subscription? Now I need to calculate like how many videos I want to create, depending on what it is. So I mean, all of this I think connect to what we were saying is in this idea that the pricing, everything is being impacted, right? All the tooling, and as a DevOps engineer, when you want to use this kind of tools, is something to take into account, right? Especially if you integrate a certain tool or model into your workflow. Be aware that prices are changing. There's this fluidity now, and models are being getting more capable. But sometimes you don't even need, right? Like people throw Opus at everything, for example, just because it's the best performing one. But sometimes you don't actually need that. So yeah, it's good to think about this, because the landscape is changing, right, in terms of cost, and things might not start to, let's say, at the end make sense anymore when you're spending way too much for something that maybe don't deliver that much value, right? Depends on what.
I mean, like even when you get to territory of paying a couple thousand per feature, then you actually back to the same like you had before AI, but it's just faster and more elastic. Right. So, but the pricing the same, and you will have the same calculation. Like, should we build this feature? Should we use this capability on that project? My hope is that we will have a less open source projects that like popping up now every day. Like, look, I just built something. It's starting to get annoying a little bit. Like people just running around burning tokens and stuff that no one is using. And that's another trend in the AI industry. So like you have the CapEx, but like we might be building a lot, but is it being used? Is it solving the real problem? Like what is the business use case for that? Like is it making anyone's life better, or is it just a noise? I think we're gonna leave you with this question for today.
It's a good food for thought. Yes. Food for thought.
We're gonna hear each other or see each other next week, Thank you for tuning in. Stay aware, keep thinking, apply your judgment.
And see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.